Hello.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Colorado ranks in the top 5 states for one of the strongest economic recoveries in our country. Our unemployment has dropped to 3.7%. We've recovered more than all the jobs we lost during the pandemic. But despite this strong economic rebound, there's plenty of people in our state who continue to struggle. For too many Coloradans living on our streets, it's harmful to their well-being and the well-being of our communities. One of the things that sets Colorado apart is our amazing way of life. Not only are we known for our work around the world for supporting our public lands, but that sense of adventure and lifestyle, it translates into our daily lives. It's really about not just our mountain and rural communities, but our urban communities as well. Our homes and our communities aren't just places we live. They're our playgrounds. They're where we enjoy our local parks, our playgrounds, our thriving restaurant and cultural scene. We have vibrant neighborhoods where families stroll through the park safely, play volleyball, basketball, or pickleball. You gotta watch out on that one. Have cookouts, walk their dogs, take their morning jog. This is what makes Colorado great. But as we all know, this quality of life is at risk. Mental health, homelessness, substance abuse, housing costs, these were problems before the pandemic, but these last 2 years have pushed communities across the country into a crisis. Vulnerable individuals and families who are on the brink have been more likely to fall into homelessness, and it's become even harder for those who are already experiencing homelessness to access the services that they need to break the cycle. We need to address this issue, and we need to address it now. In order to address the fallout of the pandemic, in partnership with the legislature, we're trying to meet the needs of Coloradans across the spectrum. Over the last few weeks, we've joined legislators in announcing historic investments to expand access to mental and behavioral health support, increase the supply of affordable housing, bolster our workforce in critical industries from construction to behavioral health to education to healthcare and everything in between. And today, we're proud to announce that Colorado is announcing new investments to reduce homelessness. But state investments alone will not solve the problem. Our local leaders in urban and suburban communities need to step up and address the issue. Coloradans are demanding action, and it's time to deliver. We're long past finger pointing. It's time to deliver real results in reducing homelessness. Homelessness is an issue that primarily lives at the municipal level. And because of the statewide importance, the state is taking an unprecedented step of putting up state property to address a community solution. The state is pushing local communities to invest and to be innovative to address this challenge, and the state will be a co-investor. By repurposing the Ridgeview campus, the state, in partnership with local communities, can focus on reducing homelessness, supporting addiction recovery, access to behavioral and mental health support. We're also excited to announce a request for application to support a new Denver metro area campus that will provide behavioral and mental health services, addiction recovery and stabilization, access to medical care, and supportive housing or transitional housing located in the Denver metro area. This will provide a good opportunity for local governments across the Denver metro area, private and philanthropic partners to show innovation and collaboration towards data-driven policies that will reduce homelessness. There's also legislation we hear about to create the Homeless Response Grants Program, which helps local communities build a continuum of solutions focused on connecting people to supportive services. These efforts build on the great work that's already happening. Last week I visited Sanderson Apartments, a 60-unit supportive housing development that serves those with long lengths of homelessness, who have brain trauma and brain injuries. I also visited Ready to Work Aurora, an organization that provides adults experiencing homelessness an opportunity to rebuild their lives through work, and they have a successful work rate of over 70% of the people that graduate their program still have their job a year later, which is a great level of success for people that are able to then support themselves, pay their rent, and live the Colorado dream. I also visited Mile High United Way, which connects Coloradans to critical services through the 211 network. Reducing homelessness is absolutely critical, and local governments and municipalities need to step up and meet the moment. State government does not have the authority or jurisdiction to implement local ordinances. We can be a supporter and investor in local efforts, and we will, even more so, with this effort. But at the end of the day, It will take enforcement of local efforts to address the issue on the ground. I want to thank all of the community organizations and local governments who've helped inform this legislation, who've been doing this work for years. I also want to thank our legislative champions, Representative Woodrow, Senator Gonzalez, Senator Kolker, Senator Fields, Representative Alex Valdez, Representative Judah, Representative Sullivan, Senator Coleman, and Senator Hansen. I also want to thank Kathy Alderman, Chief Policy Officer and Vice President of Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, for speaking today. The state is here to be a partner in building more housing, a partner in supporting addiction recovery and mental and behavioral health support, a partner in supporting job training and workforce readiness, making investments alongside local governments. But we also know that what we can't do is implement and enforce local ordinances. With that, I'd like to turn it over to a young woman whose own story, whose own inspirational story, has been changed by one of these programs, the program I visited last week, Stella, a graduate of Ready to Work. Stella?
Thank you, sir. Hello, my name is Christella Watts, and I am a graduate from the Ready to Work program. Before I went to the Bridge House, I was lost, broken, addicted. I had many problems. I had custody battles. I had no hope. I found the Bridge House program through WID Medford, and I began to see that there's a way out. There's hope, there's passion, there's commitment, and they provide everything that you need to get your life back. And they start from the day that you walk into the door. They show compassion towards you, and then you, like he said, they offer a work-first solution to help end homelessness. The love and support that you get while you were inside of that program is undeniably, you can't even describe it. Once we graduated the program, you still continued to get aftercare. They follow up with you and provide housing support and other things that go with being in recovery. But having more programs like this in our community is what we need to help end homelessness. The people that have mental health problems, they need their program. The people with addictions, they need their program. The people that are fighting homelessness need their program, because there's not one program that is fit for all people. So if people could just have understanding and find their passion and the things that they need to move forward, then there's a program for everybody. My program was the Bridge House Ready to Work program, and I have been successful for 5 years once graduating that program. So I believe in the Work First solution because it has worked for me, and I know a number of graduates that it is still working for them. Thanks.
Beautiful. Really good job. Senator Julie Gonzalez.
Thank you, Governor. Stella, thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience, because that is what we are here today to lift up and to support with the package of policies that we will be introducing here in the legislature today. Thank you for being here, and thanks to everyone who is joining us today to help us address the crisis impacting so many of our unhoused neighbors and friends and family members across the state of Colorado. I know the impact and how transformational access to safe and secure housing truly can be, because I've seen it play out in my community. I live in an affordable housing unit myself, and it's the only reason that I'm able to stand before you as a state senator today, because access to affordable and safe and secure housing changed my life. And we've seen the impacts that the cost of housing is having across our state. This pandemic hit our communities hard, particularly working class Coloradans and communities of color. While recovery is underway, for those Coloradans, the economic impacts of this ongoing pandemic is still super visceral. And so as we work to alleviate the economic impacts of the crisis, including historic investments into building both more affordable housing and protecting and preserving existing housing, addressing homelessness is about more than just creating more housing. It's meeting folks where they're at. And it's about connecting folks to the services that they need and the care and the housing that they need. And so today, I'm proud to be part of the legislators and the grassroots organizations who have been working. They've been doing this work. But to be able to work on this legislative package, to be able to tackle this issue from multiple angles. Later today, I believe, we'll be introducing a $105 million grant program that I'm honored to work on alongside Senator Kolker and Representatives Woodrow and Exum. The bill that we work on, that will be introduced in the House, will provide $105 million to fund a robust menu of initiatives aimed at supporting our unhoused neighbors, such as emergency shelters, bridge and transitional housing, recovery care and related residential programs, permanent supportive housing, employment assistance and job training, and housing search and counseling services. Just this morning, we in the Senate, and I believe in the House as well, did a tribute to support the amazing work of Urban Peak, to acknowledge the ways that they meet young people where they're at and provide them the services that they need. In the legislature this week, we'll be doing a donation drive, right? But we recognize that the kindness and generosity of so many individual Coloradans is but one piece of this puzzle. The work that we're doing to step up as a state, as a new partner, to say to the local governments, to the grassroots organizations, and to the impacted individuals, this is the state of Colorado stepping up as a partner as well. You'll see other bills that are introduced also, a $45 million Ridgeview campus policy that will be sponsored by Senators Fields and Henriksen and Representative Alex Valdez, along with a $50 million Metro Regional Campus policy that is sponsored by Senators Coleman and Hansen and Reps Judah and Sullivan. And more to speak more about those policies in particular, I'd like to welcome my fellow colleague who served on the Affordable Housing Transformational Task Force that worked in a bipartisan and intentional way over the course of the fall and winter, Representative Aman Judah.
Friends, before I get started, I just want to say how lucky I am. Ready to Work is not only in my district, but I sit on the board, and I'm so lucky to work with people like Stella and our staff. So just one more time, please. So thank you all for joining us today. This is truly a transformational package of legislation, and I want to thank everyone who has contributed to these developing bills. It's clear that the pandemic and social instability that followed has taken a toll on our communities, and the number of people experiencing homelessness has risen as a result. Every Coloradan deserves a safe place to live, but that reality is out of reach for so many. We won't fully address this crisis unless we address the root causes of homelessness. What we're doing this session takes a comprehensive look at this issue. We're investing hundreds of millions of dollars and federal funds to improve access to behavioral health and substance use disorder treatments. From affordable to transitional housing, to supportive services people need to get back on their feet, the bills we're working on this session will look at every angle of this crisis. The Denver metro area lacks both transitional and supportive housing, and people experiencing homelessness face many challenges to access treatment and chronic illnesses. leading many into a cycle of expensive treatment with no follow-up. Denver shelters saw a 99% increase in people experiencing homelessness for the first time, and our region saw a 90% increase in overdose among people living without housing. Today, I'm introducing legislation with Representative Sullivan and Senators Coleman and Hansen that will direct $50 million of federal pandemic relief funds to the Denver-Aurora metro area. This funding will be available to collaborations between local governments in the region and nonprofits to build a navigation campus to prevent and respond to homelessness. The funding will be available to Denver, Arapahoe, Adams, Jefferson, Douglas, and Broomfield counties to partner together or with local organizations to build, acquire, or facilitate a homelessness navigation campus in the Denver area. The navigation campus will provide services not limited to, but including behavioral health, mental health, and substance use disorder, including crisis stabilization, medical care, including dental care, transitional housing, emergency shelter, permanent supportive housing, recovery-oriented services and care, vocational rehabilitation, and employment skills. The navigation campus will help our region respond and prevent homelessness by providing additional shelter and capacity that also offers the supports and services people need to get back on their feet and transition into long-term housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Joda, and thank you everyone for being here. It is an honor to join with my colleagues and Governor Polis as we come together to address this critical issue impacting all of our communities. It's no secret that, like many states, Colorado suffers from a housing affordability and homelessness crisis. We've all seen the tents and we've all felt the impacts across the state. While the problem is undoubtedly complex, the solutions must start with housing stability. A safe place to live is absolutely essential. Without that, it is nearly impossible to get help, including crucial wraparound services to the folks who desperately need it the most. Throughout the fall and winter, I had the honor of serving on the Affordable Housing Transformational Task Force, which the legislature set up with the goal of effectively spending upwards of $500 million in federal funds on affordable housing needs. I would like to thank Governor Polis and his office for prioritizing another $200 million designed specifically to address homelessness. These funds are crucial and will help marry the work of the Affordable Housing Transformational Task Force with that of the Behavioral Health Transformational Task Force. Those who've studied this problem know that addressing homelessness requires access to both affordable, safe housing as well as mental and behavioral health wraparound services, and that is precisely where these dollars are intended to flow. I am honored to be joined with my dear colleague and friend, Representative Tony Exum Sr., Senators Gonzalez and Coker, to introduce a bill I believe is dropping today to establish a grant program within the Department of Housing totaling over $105 million specifically to fund local efforts to attain affordable housing development, property conversions, and supportive services and data. This is a statewide and local solution to a statewide and local problem. These grant funds will be paired with local matching funds and resources to ensure that we leverage and maximize our available impact. So with that, I want to thank the Governor's Office, the Affordable Housing Transformational Task Force, the work of everyone on the Behavioral Health Transformational Task Force, the subpanels, the facilitators, our excellent policy staff here at the Capitol, and all the experts, community stakeholders, and others who have been working tirelessly to make sure we get it right with respect to these one-time dollars. With that, I thank you very much for being here, and I turn things over to Kathy Alden.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Alderman. I am the Chief Communications and Public Policy Officer for the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. I also had the honor of serving as the Vice Chair for the Affordable Housing Transformational Task Force subpanel. And if you can come up with the acronym for that, I praise you. During that subpanel process, homelessness came up over and over and over. Obviously, it's one of the greatest needs across the housing continuum. And so I stand here today very grateful and thankful for Senator Gonzalez and Representative Woodrow and bringing this grants bill and bringing these dollars forward. But I also want to thank all of the other sponsors of the bills that came as recommendations from this task force that we needed to create more safe spaces for people experiencing homelessness so that they could recover, stabilize, and thrive. I want to thank the governor's office for his bold approach in committing these funds outside of that transformational task force process, recognizing, of course, that the homelessness needs were even far greater than that task force could address. And I want to thank all the staff who worked really thoughtfully on crafting this legislation. I think we've seen a lot of great progress on language and how we're talking about people experiencing homelessness. This is a huge opportunity for our state. We have far too many families and individuals experiencing homelessness in Colorado, and our local communities have been crying for partnerships from the state government in resolving these issues, and this is the opportunity to do just that. These one-time investments will create not just opportunities for individuals, but for communities to stabilize, to thrive, and to create safer spaces for the people within them. And we want to make sure that we are that when homelessness strikes, it can be quickly resolved and it will be a very brief experience for most people. COVID really did lay bare the gaps in our system that have made homelessness resolution so very difficult. Housing instability, job loss, capacity issues at shelter, and the lack of recovery spaces for people experiencing homelessness who are sick with COVID or frankly sick with anything these gaps were never so apparent as they have been for the last couple of years. And as we watched our unhoused communities suffer from the disproportionate impact of the pandemic, we have to align that with the historical barriers that they have always faced in accessing housing, healthcare, recovery services, and meaningful opportunities to integrate into community. And the time to act is now, and I'm so honored to be here today to be part of that action. We can reduce those historical barriers. We can provide safe spaces for individuals and families experiencing homelessness. And we can make sure that families experiencing housing instability don't fall into the cycle of homelessness, which is so very difficult to get out of once you're in it. A couple of things about the grant program that I think are really exciting for our local communities is the flexibility that these funds provide. We know that homelessness looks different in rural areas than it does in urban areas, and we need different interventions in each of those areas, and this grant program will allow for that. We also know that this funding will provide funding across the spectrum of housing needs, from street outreach to emergency shelter, all the way up to permanent, supportive, and affordable housing. And we need to be investing across the full spectrum if we want to make meaningful change. Some of you have heard me speak recently about having a conversation with a colleague of mine from the Denver Office of Housing Stability, also known as HOST. They run a family motel program for families experiencing homelessness, and usually that motel program is serving about 15 families. As of last week, they were currently serving 155 families. Those are families with children living in motels because they can't find housing, and there's not an adequate safety net to help them find housing. And I think that every time I say that out loud, it's a gut punch, because we need to be providing more resources across our state to make sure that families aren't falling into this cycle. As I mentioned, it's so very difficult to get out of it. But I am very excited about the investments being made today. I think we're going to be a better state for it, and I'm very hopeful that every Coloradan will have a safe place to call home moving forward. So thank you for your time today, and I know everybody is available for questions.
Representative Judah had to run the committee meeting, with the rest are available to questions. Any questions? Sí. El Estado no puede hacer esto solo. Necesitamos que los gobiernos locales hagan su parte también. Ellos tienen que invertir en soluciones, y las autoridades locales deben hacer cumplir las leyes que ya están en los libros.
Y en español también, nomás si nos podrían dar un poquito sobre el virus para que la comunidad hispana entienda.
Estos fondos, vamos a usar esos fondos para añadir puestos de ayudar con adicciones, y es muy importante para la gente que tiene indigencia, vivir y tiene puestos, y hay soluciones locales con muchos ganos después de una solución. Ellos tienen un puesto, más que 70% todavía tienen el puesto un año después del programa. Y también necesitamos más servicios para ayudar a la gente quien está luchando contra la adicción.
What are the metrics for measuring success in this climate?
Simple. Less people on the streets, homelessness goes down.
Is there an estimate of when the results might be?
Yeah, so some of these are buildings and structures. So, the funds will come through the legislature, the bids will go out. I think Ridgeview will be ready sooner than, for instance, the earlier stages for the other Denver Metro facility. Other programs come online quicker. So, there's going to be a timeline for everything that's in these bills, but where there is construction and building, keep in mind that takes some time until that's completed and has the impact. Who wants to speak to that? Anybody? So we were open to different partnerships.
Thank you for the question. I think lots of folks in Denver have lots of ideas about where a facility could or should not or could not go. And so part of the way that this, the bill that will address the Denver metro area campus will be to allow local governments and nonprofits to create and facilitate their own proposals for community to say, this is where we think would best meet the services and needs of folks experiencing homelessness, as opposed to us as the state saying, this is where we're going to put it. I feel like, as someone who represents a number of communities that, quite frankly, often find themselves supporting more than their fair share of for folks experiencing homelessness, I think it's a really great opportunity for the Denver metro area to be thoughtful and innovative and to work alongside those organizations that do the work on the front lines day in and day out, to say, this is the place that will best serve our community. So the bill, as I understand it, that will be introduced today, will give that sort of RFP, request for proposal process.
And I was just talking to Representative Woodrow, so on the previous question on the timeline. So while the structures take time, the grant program money starts flowing later this year. So budget in July 1st next year. So that means this fall there will be support in place that will reduce homelessness by connecting folks to job training, mental health support services. Yes?
You also mentioned that there's only so much the state can do, a lot of small municipalities. Is there anything in this package to ensure that there's an equal application or equal distribution of these programs and services?
No, it takes local governments stepping up. I know that Ridgeview is a collaboration between the state, Arapahoe County, City of Aurora. We will see which metro area governments and other private and philanthropic partners step up for metro area campus. Absolutely, the state needs the cooperation of local governments to reduce homelessness. Okay, thank you.